What do you think of when I say easy to use? You probably think of a streamlined, efficient, simple solution to using a product that you've bought. Something that's not confusing, not distracting, and not overly excessively complicated. As simple as it gets. Ease of use is a good thing, but at the same time, we often consider customizability, tweakability, and functionality given to the consumer as a good thing as well. After all, more functions, more freedom is going to allow the consumer to tweak whatever product they have to fit their needs better. Thing is, functionality and customizability are the exact opposites of ease of use. The more functionality and freedom of choice you give to your consumer, the harder the product becomes to use. So that is in a perfect world. There are plenty of products with very little options and freedom to use, yet are still extremely convoluted and difficult. There are also plenty of products that are extremely easy to use, even though they give plenty of customization. But in a perfect world with the same amount of brainpower and engineering knowledge behind every product, the product with more features and customizability will inevitably be more complicated and more difficult to use. This example of this is probably Android versus iOS. Now let's not talk about the early days of Android, where it truly was a complicated, convoluted mess that made no sense at all. But the thing is, if you look at Android and iOS today, they are honestly both extremely well laid out, not just Apple's software. Despite this, Android still retains the stigma or image of being more complicated, convoluted, and confusing to use, while Apple maintains the image of being the streamlined, easy, simplified option. Why? Well, because iOS is a closely controlled, walled-off garden with very minimal customization features, especially when compared to Android, which has all the customization in the world. Those extra options and customization that things like Android or a customizable product give, well, they make things harder and make things less easy and less streamlined because they distract the consumer. More options looks nice, and more options is often good for straight up functionality. But when it comes to simplicity and ease of use, giving a consumer the freedom of choice often does them more harm than good. Because 95% of the time, especially if your product is targeted at the mainstream, these mainstream consumers who aren't tech nerds and constantly trying to min-max their gear, options that they will never even consider using or reading just makes your UI, makes your products seem more complicated, convoluted, and difficult than a rival product that has removed all the fat. What are you supposed to do as a product designer? Now, I'm not a product designer, I'm just a product reviewer, just a commentator with very little experience in designing products. Thinking about it, it's like a very difficult spectrum. It's mutually exclusive, it's a lose-lose game. Do you go the route of Apple and remove all freedom and functionality and customization? Something that has pissed me off ever since I swapped to an iPhone. A video on that is coming soon. Seriously, I swapped to an iPhone as my daily driver. Or do you go to the route of Android or Linux or open source software where you can basically do anything under the sun that you want as a consumer? Sure, it is going to be way more complicated, way more intricate because there's just so many more directions you can go when setting up your particular product. But because of that freedom to set things up will allow a consumer, once set up, to have a better experience, a more intricate experience, a more customized experience to fit them better. It might seem like a issue that only happens with Android or iOS or similar operating systems, but for example, Sony versus Canon is a great example as well. Canon's cameras have a lot less functionality in terms of customization than Sony, and I'm not saying Canon cameras are worse software-wise. They are a lot simpler, easier, and well laid out, and just more common sense to use. But in terms of pure setting freedom, the ability to set all the buttons to specific custom options, the ability to tweak every single minute setting from autofocus speed to autofocus sensitivity to eye you can focus on a Sony camera. You can't do that level of intricate tweaking on a Canon camera. It's everywhere, and it's actually something that always interests me because I always see it. How does this relate to the Cooler Master Frame 700, the PC case that actually sparked the concept to make this video? That's because the Master Frame 700 is on one end of the spectrum. It is the definition of choices over ease of use. It's a convoluted, complicated case that was released to a lot of negative reviews and mixed feedback because Well, it was ambitious, but because of its ambitiousness, it ended up being this overly complicated mess that a lot of people couldn't fathom and couldn't understand why Cooler Master would make. Now, I have plenty of love for the Cooler Master Masterframe 700. It is crazy in its own way, and I love innovation and craziness. Unlike crazy cases out there that are crazy because they want to look crazy to sell more units, this is just crazy because they wanted to achieve a lot and had to use crazy methods to get there. This one has craziness and insanity in its own principles, and because of that, I really respect and love the Masterframe 700. Its extremely thick steel plates and body to its thick tempered glass, to the fact that it's got gull wing doors that can allow it to swap between two different modes. Like, there pretty much isn't any case like this. Master wasn't trying to make a case that sold well and was practical for most people in the Masterframe 700. That's what a lot of reviewers who got mad at it got wrong. I don't think Cooler Master were trying to make something that they should make. They were trying to make something to show what they could make. On average, Cooler Master's products are simple and pragmatic and rather like normal. But in the case of the Masterframe 700, it was like the engineers finally had a chance to go wild and really try to do something daring and try to push the boundaries. And I absolutely respect the Masterframe 700 because of it. But because it was trying to be ambitious, resulted in it being a product that was just difficult for a consumer to use. Its instruction manual is a great example for this. It's got more choice options than a pick-your-own-adventure storybook. You can go left, you can go right, and the instructions go all over the place because you have so many choices to do different things in the PC case. It has the ability to run in a test bench mode and an ability to run in a PC case mode, both of which look excellent and do their jobs actually really quite well. But at the same time, it's a nightmare to set up and nightmare to swap between the two. It comes flat packed like IKEA furniture, and I don't think IKEA has a particularly good reputation of making flat pack furniture easy to begin with, and the Masterframe 700 is no different. It's heavy, it's dense, it's beautiful and gorgeous once set up. When you are setting it up, you are going to have to call in some help. Masterframe 700 is a mess then. A beautiful mess, but a mess no doubt. But then, should it not exist? I mean, the stigma and the feel that I get from a lot of videos and comments about the Masterframe 700 is that it shouldn't exist at all. Really, it's not a product that really anyone would want in their right mind. It's too big, too clunky, too complicated for the average user. It's for the niche nerd who wants to try out something genuinely new and genuinely exciting in its own way. It's not designed to be something that pleases the crowd. Because it's not that doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. Look, the Masterframe 700 is actually a really well thought out product. It's clear that there was plenty of effort and passion and thought put into how this case was laid out to make it as easy and simple and as commonsensical as possible as you can get, with a case that transforms, that really is more of a cage that comes flat packed as furniture. It is a complicated mess because of its ambitions, and because of it, even though there was plenty of effort and thought and care put into making it simple and straightforward and streamlined, it inevitably faces the crux that we started this video with. It faces the issue of giving your consumer choice and taking the ease of use away from your product. I'm gonna pretend like I have the answers, but I definitely wanted to bring this to your mind. Choice versus ease of use. As a consumer, what would you prefer? And as a consumer, which is more important? The way though, the Masterframe 700 is a unique product. I admire Cooler Master for trying to do something new and something truly never been done before, which is awesome. I definitely respect them for doing it, and also I thank them for sending it over so I can use it as a test bench for future, CPU, GPU testing. But as a product to be bought and sold, it's a great halo product to show off what Cooler Master can do. But I think for the average person, they're probably better off looking at Cooler Master's half stacks and Cosmos cases because, well, it's definitely not for the sane.